Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to tackle a subject that honestly feels a little bit taboo in our current culture.
It really does, yeah. Taboo is the right word.
Right. You know the narrative I'm talking about. It's everywhere. It's on social media. It's in all the self-help books. It's probably on a motivational poster in your office right now. The idea that your life is entirely the result of your choices.
Right, the whole gospel of the self-made individual.
Exactly. That if you just grind hard enough, manifest enough, and have the right mindset, you can hack your way to anything.
It's a very seductive idea, you know? It tells us that we are the captains of our souls, and if we just steer correctly, the ocean will literally just get out of our way.
I mean, I've fallen for it. But today, we're going to look at a source that takes that idea, politely sets it on fire, and then examines the ashes. We are doing a deep dive into an essay titled Constraint by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha.
Yes, Malha's work it's incredible.
And I have to say, reading this didn't make me feel hopeless. It actually made me feel relieved.
That is a very common reaction to his writing, because he isn't trying to offer comfort, and he certainly isn't trying to inspire you in the traditional sense. He's just trying to map the terrain of reality accurately.
Just laying it out there.
Exactly. His central thesis is that a life begins inside conditions that are already active, already shaping and exerting massive pressure long before choice ever enters the picture.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack those invisible forces. Malha breaks them down into categories. We're talking physiological, familial, systemic, historical, and he shows how they define the boundaries of what is possible for us. He talks about something called the width of a day, which we definitely need to get into.
Oh, it's a fascinating concept. The width of a day.
But before we dive in, I want to set the tone here for you listening. If you feel like you're constantly swimming upstream and the empowerment gurus are telling you to just swim harder, this deep dive is for you. This isn't about pessimism, it's about sanity.
Precisely. It's about moving from belief, the belief that we are in total control, to orientation, knowing where we actually stand on the map. So let's start with the most immediate container we inhabit, the body.
Right. Malha starts right there. He argues that the body isn't just a vehicle for our brain to drive around in. He says the body is not a neutral container for will.
This is a crucial distinction. We so often treat the body like a rental car. If the car is sluggish, we just stomp on the gas pedal. And that gas pedal is our willpower.
Yeah, just push through the fatigue.
But Malha points out that the body is an active condition. It sets the thresholds for what is possible long before you make a decision to work hard.
And this brings us to that metaphor I mentioned, the width of a day. I absolutely love this phrasing. It's not about how many hours are in the day.
Right.
Because we all have 24 hours. You hear that classic line, you have the same 24 hours as Beyoncé.
Which is technically true on a clock, but experientially false. The width of those hours is radically different. Malha explains that a body determines how long attention can be held. It determines how much interruption you can tolerate before your nervous system spikes. It decides when the day effectively ends in terms of usable energy.
That is such a huge validation for anyone who hits a wall at 3 in the afternoon while their colleague is just getting started. Malha makes this really interesting distinction between attitude and physiology.
Yes. We tend to moralize endurance. If someone can work 14 hours straight, we call them driven or dedicated. Malha strips that away. He says endurance is not a moral achievement, it's physiology.
It's just biology.
Right. It is shaped by genetics, early childhood exposure, nutrition, sleep history, and accumulated stress.
He mentioned something about accumulating fatigue quietly, which really resonated with me.
That is the dangerous part. Some bodies recover quickly, they mask damage. But other bodies, perhaps due to chronic illness or past trauma, accumulate fatigue quietly. They absorb strain and keep functioning until they suddenly don't. Malha writes that collapse often arrives without a clear, precipitating event.
That's the scary part. You think you're fine, you think you're just pushing through, and then boom. And the problem, as Malha points out, is the mismatch. My body might have a narrow day today because I didn't sleep or I'm stressed, but the world
remains fixed. Timelines do not change. Expectations do not recalibrate because your capacity is dropped. And this is where the cost of participation comes in.
Right, the tax you pay just to exist in that space.
Exactly. Malha argues that when the body narrows the day but the demands stay the same, you aren't just working hard, you are drawing from reserves that do not replenish.
And from the outside, if I start saying no to things or I'm moving slower, people look at me and think, oh, he's disengaged or he's lazy.
It is entirely misread as a character flaw, when in reality, it is a negotiation between a body's limits and a world that refuses to register them. You are paying a biological tax just to show up, but the body is just the first layer of the stack. Mala then zooms out to the next container, which is the family system.
Okay, let's unpack this one. Because usually when we talk about family inheritance, we're talking about eye color or maybe money if you're lucky. But Mala is talking about something deeper here, the organization around need.
He argues that no family is neutral. Every family is a system organized around survival, need, and expectation. And crucially, roles are assigned to children very early, often without a single word being spoken.
This is the part that made me stop and think about my own childhood. He lists these specific archetypes: the child who learns to stay quiet, the child who performs competence.
And the child who learns to absorb tension so others don't have to. Think about that. These aren't personality quirks. Mala insists these are adaptive responses. If you grew up in a chaotic environment, performing competence, being the little adult, wasn't a choice. It was a survival strategy to stabilize the system.
And the kicker is, you don't just grow out of that when you turn 18. You don't just graduate high school and leave your nervous system behind.
No, it becomes your default setting. If you learned that need is dangerous or that asking for help feels like exposure, you carry that into your job, your marriage, your friendships. Mala says the internal system remains organized around scarcity, even if your external life has improved. You might have a great job now, but your nervous system is still waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So you're sitting in a corner office, but your body thinks you're still that 6-year-old trying not to wake up dad.
Precisely. And Mala connects this to the material reality of families, specifically the difference between families that transmit margin versus those that transmit precarity.
This is vital. He talks about families that can buffer impact. If a child in a high-resource family makes a mistake, fails a class, crashes a car, loses a job, the family absorbs the error. There is a safety net.
Versus a family where if you mess up, the lights get turned off. In those environments, responsibility arrives early, not as a virtue, but as a necessity. And Mala points out the injustice of how we view this later in life.
Right, the judgment call we make on it.
Exactly. We look at two adults. One is taking risks, experimenting, trying new careers. The other is cautious, sticking to the safe path. We say the first one is brave and the second one lacks ambition.
But really, one is experimenting and the other is surviving.
Exactly. When we ignore the margin underneath people, we translate constraint into character. We judge people for being exhausted or risk-averse, ignoring the fact that they are operating without a buffer.
So we've got the body, we've got the family. Now let's talk about where we physically exist, the geography. Mala says place isn't just a backdrop, it's an active force.
Geography is destiny in more ways than we like to admit. It's about infrastructure, transport, pollution. Mala notes that some places offer margin, while others extract energy just to remain functional.
That is such a perfect way to put it. Extracting energy. If I have to commute 2 hours each way on a bus that's always late, or if I live in a food desert, or if I have to worry about safety walking home, that is energy leaving my system that I can't use for creativity or self-improvement.
And this leads right into his discussion of impersonal systems. This was one of the most striking parts of the essay for me. We interact with institutions constantly: healthcare, banking, government agencies. Mala points out that these systems are designed for scale, not responsiveness.
He says they aren't hostile, they're just not relational.
Right. They do not hate you. They just do not care. They do not recognize effort. You can fill out the form perfectly, call it exactly 9 in the morning, and still be on hold for 3 hours or get rejected by an algorithm.
And this creates what he calls the waiting condition.
Yes. For many people, waiting becomes a primary state of existence. Waiting for approval, waiting for the bus, waiting for the check to clear. Maha argues that over time, you reorganize your life around this delay. You plan less. You expect refusal.
And again, from the outside, that looks like resignation. It looks like you've given up. But Mala says it's actually adaptation to a field that does not respond.
It is a rational response to an irrational situation. Why invest energy in planning when the system has taught you that plans are usually broken by forces outside your control? If the bus is never on time, you stop trusting the schedule. If the system never calls back, you stop leaving messages.
This brings us to the heavy hitters: class and timing. Mala defines class in a really interesting way here. It's not just about how much money is in the bank. It's about what happens when something breaks.
It is the physics of disaster. Class is the buffer that determines whether a broken transmission in your car is an inconvenience or a catastrophe that costs you your job. Mala writes, scarcity consumes attention. This is a profound insight. When you are managing scarcity, your focus narrows to immediate survival. You literally cannot afford long-term thinking.
Which makes all that advice about 5-year plans feel almost insulting if you're in that position. You're just trying to make it to Friday.
Exactly. And speaking of advice, let's talk about the arithmetic of timing. This is where Malha addresses the generational gap, and I think this part will resonate with a lot of listeners.
Oh, absolutely. He talks about the historical moment you enter. Do you enter the world during an economic expansion or a contraction?
Right. My dad bought a house for a remarkably low price in the 80s, and he tells me, just save your money. It's simple math.
But the math has changed.
Exactly. Malha calls this arithmetic, not cynicism. Advice from older generations often fails because the structures that supported them, affordable housing, stable pensions, lower tuition, have hardened or disappeared. He says, what once required persistence now requires luck.
That hits hard. What once required persistence now requires luck.
When opportunity contracts, competition intensifies. Vigilance becomes permanent. It's not that young people aren't working hard, it's that the exchange rate for that work has plummeted. You can work just as hard as your parents did and receive a fraction of the stability in return.
So let's look at the full picture here. We have physiology, family roles, geography, broken systems, class pressures, bad timing. And the crucial point Mala makes is they don't take turns.
No. They do not cue politely, they intersect. This is the concept of the stack. A compromised body plus a strained family history plus a rigid economic system plus a bad historical moment, they arrive together.
It's the accumulation that gets you. It's rarely one big dramatic movie moment tragedy.
It is the death by 1,000 cuts. Small limitations gather. Missed opportunities cluster. Fatigue becomes the baseline. Malha describes this as life narrowing without closure. You don't hit a wall, the hallway just gets tighter and tighter. Your options slowly evaporate, not because you made a bad choice, but because the stack is leaning on you.
And this is why he goes so hard against the empowerment narrative. You can do anything if you just believe stuff we started with. Why does he think those narratives fail so badly?
Because they ask the individual to compensate for what the environment refuses to provide. They relocate the burden inward. If the system is broken, the empowerment narrative says, you just need to be more resilient. It privatizes the problem.
It gaslights you, basically. It tells you that a structural problem, like the housing market or the healthcare system, is actually a mindset problem.
Correct. And Mala reminds us that choice arrives already shaped. By the time you get to make a choice, the options have already been whittled down by your body, your bank account, and your location. He says a person can do everything right and still find the field is not open.
That is a tough pill to swallow. We want to believe that if we do X, Y, and Z, we get the reward. It's like a vending machine logic.
But the universe is not a vending machine. It is a complex ecosystem of constraints. Sometimes you put the coin in and the machine just eats it.
So where does this leave us? Because we promised at the beginning this wasn't going to be a total downer. Mala says that recognizing these constraints isn't about finding an excuse. It's not about saying, oh, well, the world is rigged, I'm going to stay in bed.
No, absolutely not. He is very clear on this. To name constraint accurately is not to argue for fairness or to assign blame. It is to refuse the lie. It is to stop the internal monologue that says your exhaustion is a moral failing.
He calls it a shift from belief to orientation.
Yes. When you navigate a city, you need a map. If the map tells you there is a wall in front of you, you don't pretend it's a door just because you have a positive mindset. You acknowledge the wall. You stop banging your head against it.
That's the relief I felt reading this. It's the relief of stopping the banging.
Malha writes that awareness doesn't necessarily create freedom. It doesn't magically create margin in your bank account or energy in your body, but it removes the illusion. It allows you to navigate the terrain as it actually is, not as you wish it were.
Hope becomes more careful. I like that. It's not blind optimism. It's calculated navigation.
And there is a dignity in that. There is dignity in saying, I am tired because I am carrying a heavy load rather than I am tired because I am weak.
That distinction changes everything. It changes how you treat yourself, and I think it changes how you treat other people. When you see someone else struggling, you don't automatically think they aren't trying. You wonder, what does their stack look like?
Exactly. It generates compassion instead of judgment.
That's the takeaway for me. If you were listening to this and you feel that pressure, that weight, maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the stack.
It almost certainly is the stack.
We're going to wrap up here, but I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. It builds on what Mala is saying about visibility. We spend so much energy trying to pretend the walls aren't there, trying to manifest doors where there are only bricks. If we accept the map with all its high walls, does that kill our hope? Or does it finally give us the clarity to find the actual exits? Maybe the bravest thing you can do isn't to break through the wall, but to simply stop, look at it, and say, okay, this is here. Now, knowing this, what can I actually do?
It's the difference between fighting reality and working with it.
Exactly. Thank you for diving deep with us today. This was a heavy one, but I think a necessary one.
A very necessary orientation.
We'll see you on the next deep dive. Take care of your physiology, everyone.
And be kind to yourselves.
Yeah.
Goodbye.